Racist customer strangles black waitress at restaurant. Unaware that she was... Selena James always believed that silence was her only defense against the injustices life imposed on her. Working as a server in a busy restaurant, she faced daily looks of contempt and cutting words, while hiding within herself a past few could imagine. One night, however, everything changes when an arrogant customer crosses the line, and the humiliation goes from being merely verbal to public and painful. What no one expected was that this moment of suffering would pave the way for powerful revelations, unexpected alliances, and a turning point capable of transforming not only Selena's life, but also that of everyone around her. A journey of courage, dignity, and justice was just beginning. Before we begin this moving story, tell me one thing. Where are you watching from now? I like to know where these stories are going. And if you love stories full of intensity, resilience, and heartwarming endings, please subscribe to the channel. This way, you help this space grow and encourage me to bring you even more special stories. When Selena James crossed the room, a tray perched on her forearm, balancing discreetly clinking glasses of water. She was 30, with medium chocolate skin that reflected the yellowish light from the chandeliers, alert, tired dark brown eyes, and curly hair tied back in a tight bun to keep it from falling over her face. Her uniform, a white shirt with rolled-up sleeves, a black apron fitted to the waist, and dark pants, was impeccable despite the long shift. On her feet were slightly worn black sneakers. Around her neck, a simple necklace with a small gold cross that she touched, almost unconsciously, when she needed to focus. The restaurant, in Dallas, was a classic in the city. Exposed brick walls, old paintings of rodeos and Texas landscapes, solid wood tables, the smell of grilled meat mingling with notes of chili and melted butter. The soft ambient music, a mix of contemporary country and piano, barely concealed the hustle and bustle of the customers. It was a Friday night. Everything was packed. At table 12, near the large windows overlooking the avenue, sat Richard Miller. He was 48 years old, white, with fair skin slightly flushed by the heat and alcohol. A tall, broad body that occupied the chair with authority. His thinning brown hair was slicked back, and his cold blue eyes scanned the room impatiently. He wore a designer polo shirt in a dark blue shade that highlighted his bulky wristwatch, its metal gleaming in the light. The scent of expensive cologne formed a small, invisible boundary around him. Selena set down the tray slowly, maintaining her professional smile. "Good evening, sir. May I get you something to start?" "We have house lemonade, iced tea, and refreshing mocktails." Richard glanced quickly and then returned to the menu, as if she'd interrupted an important thought. "Ice water, 2 lemons, not 3, 2. He held up his index finger, marking the number as if laying down a rule. "Of course, sir." 2 lemons, Selena wrote on the pad in a firm handwriting. Lucy Brown crossed the aisle at the end with a pitcher of tea. She was 28 years old, a light-skinned black woman with straight, shoulder-length hair that bounced as she walked, and an easy smile, but tonight her eyes betrayed concern. Selena noticed her friend's gaze, nodded slightly, and focused again. Richard flipped through the menu with an audible sigh. "And the steak, the house cooking time is a mess. Does medium here mean dry or rare?" Selena kept her voice calm. "Ours, medium, is juicy, red in the center. But I can order it exactly how you like it. I want it rare but hot, not cold, not lukewarm, hot, and no too much butter in the mashed potatoes. Does anyone here know how to cook without drowning the food?" She took a deep breath. "I'll make sure it arrives just as you described." We'll see. Richard set down the menu with a smack. And don't bring me that bread you insist on. Last time it was hard. Perfect. No bread. I'll be right back with the water. At the counter, Selena ordered the kitchen precisely. Rare steak, high internal temperature, mashed potatoes with reduced butter. Beside her, Lucy whispered, "Has he started yet?" "Yes." Selena squeezed the pen between her fingers. "But everything is under control. If you need, I'll switch tables with you." "Thank you, Lucy. For now, I'll follow." Selena returned with the crystal clear water, droplets running down the glass. "Here you go, sir. 2 lemons, just as you requested." Richard examined the glass as if testing it. He lifted it, took a long sip, and gestured vaguely. "And bring more napkins. Lots of them. The last place I went seemed to be rationing napkins." "I'll bring it right now." She wrote it down and walked away, keeping her posture straight. Minutes later, the order arrived at the pass-through. The meat looked perfect. Seared exterior, bright red center, the mashed potatoes were tender, with a subtle sheen. Selena inspected the dish as she always did. Steady hands, clinical gaze. She placed the order on the table, describing, "Rare steak, warm inside. Mashed potatoes with less butter. No bread. Need anything else?" Richard cut off a tiny piece and slowly brought it to his mouth. He frowned exaggeratedly. "It's not hot enough." He moved the fork around the plate. "And this mashed potatoes. I said less butter, not less flavor. I can ask for it to be heated immediately and the seasoning adjusted." "Yes, you can. And you should have gotten it right the first time. That's why I'm asking about competence here." He emphasized the word as if it were an accusation. Selena felt a tightness in her chest, but remained calm. "I'll deal with it now." Lucy, from across the aisle, watched. She tried to move closer, but her own section had 2 tables calling at the same time. She gave an apologetic look that Selena caught. "It'll be okay," Selena murmured to herself, carefully picking up her plate. In the kitchen, he spoke to the chef. "I need the same dish, heated to the exact point, please. Demanding customers, temperature is the key." The chef nodded. 2 minutes. While she waited, Selena checked the napkin station, grabbed a generous wad, and returned to Richard's table with a thoughtful smile. "Here are the extra napkins. Your plate will be back in a moment." He didn't thank her. Instead, he glanced at his watch. "Is time relative here? Or do you have a stopwatch?" "It's coming, sir." When the dish returned, Selena served it with a careful gesture. "Check. It's now warmer, and the flavor balance has adjusted." Richard tasted it again. This time, he nodded slowly, almost regretfully admitting it. "Better." Then he looked up at her. "Now, make sure my desk isn't left unattended. Don't make me call you." "I'll be around." The neighboring table raised its hand, and Selena went to serve them without losing track of the surroundings. She filled glasses, took a salad order, and brought more ice to another table. She returned to Richard in less than 2 minutes. "Everything okay here?" He adjusted his napkin on his lap. "For now." His tone, however, held a promise of more testing. Selena took a deep breath, an invisible gesture of self-control. The room buzzed, and despite the movement, she maintained that air of resilient elegance, the posture of someone who doesn't bend at the first whim. As they passed the bar station, Lucy finally leaned her shoulder against hers, softly. "If he crosses the line, you call me." "I will," Selena replied with a half smile. "Thank you." At that moment, The door opened and a gust of cooler air rushed in, fluttering the light curtains on the windows. The clock now read 8:27 p.m. The night was just beginning. Richard, his knife and fork as precise as his impatience, followed her, his gaze rising from his plate, as if Selena's every move were a new pretext for another comment. She knew, with the intuition of someone who'd lived through many difficult nights, that this would be no ordinary service. Even so, her steps remained firm, her necklace brushing against her skin as her heart beat faster. There was dignity in every gesture, and a tense calm that, paradoxically, made her even more present. "Can I bring the dessert menu for you to see?" he asked upon returning. "Don't anticipate things," he said dryly. "Do the basics well." Selena bit back the answer she wouldn't say and nodded. "I'm available." She turned back to the room, silently certain that at this table, the real assessment was yet to come, and that she would be ready to face it. The dessert order was still closed under Selena's arm when a glass of water tipped dangerously over on the corner of table 12. Richard Miller, already impatient, stared around the room as if everyone owed him something. The clock over the door read 8:31 p.m. The yellowish lights made his skin even redder, his blue eyes hard as cold glass. "I said don't anticipate anything," he growled, his fork clinking as it hit his plate. "You need to learn to respect the person paying the bill." "Sir, I'm here to help you. If something isn't to your liking, I can fix it." Selena's voice was firm, but lower than usual. That survival tone only those who work with the public know. Richard pushed his chair back with a harsh scrape that cut through the restaurant's hum. He stood slowly, the metal watch glinting on his wrist, and took a step forward. "Respect, miss. It's simple. You listen and obey. I heard your request and complied. I can get the manager if you prefer. I don't need a manager. I need you to understand." He leaned in too close, his strong perfume forming a wall. Up close, the pores of his skin showed in the light, and his breath came in short, heavy with suppressed irritation. The room, with its rodeo paintings and wooden tables that always welcomed lively conversation, seemed to shrink. "Sir, please keep your distance." Selena placed the notepad next to her plate to free her hands. She knew what was coming next. Intuition spoke louder than any goodwill. Richard leaned in, his jaw clenched, and then his hand came up in a quick, rough gesture. His fingers wrapped around Selena's neck, squeezing hard enough to steal her breath for an eternal second. The necklace with the small cross hit her sternum and vibrated. A chill ran down Selena's spine. Her dark brown eyes widened reflexively, while her hands exploded in reaction, trying to break his grip. "You don't respect the payer," he hissed, bringing his face closer, his breath hot and aggressive. "I'm the one who makes the rules here." The entire restaurant fell silent. The land of background music and business conversations, for a moment, lost its voice. A blonde woman at table 9 put her hand to her mouth. Her husband froze with his knife halfway to his plate. A newly hired waiter, his cloth draped over his shoulder, stood in the hallway, unsure whether to run or call someone. The clock continued to tick away, impassive. Selena tried to pull away, her fingers digging into his wrists, searching for even the slightest breathing space. "Let go. Please." Her voice came out broken but still dignified. Selena's body was screaming, her chest burning. Deep within, an old memory, a teacher from her internship talking about emotional control during crises, struck her like a lightning bolt. Breathe through your nose. Focus on the point ahead. Don't give in to fear. She fixed her gaze on the corner of the rodeo board, a horse rearing on its hooves, and thought, "I'll get through this." Lucy Brown came rushing down the hallway, the teapot nearly slipping from her hands. Her face, with its delicate features and light brown skin, paled. "Richard, stop now." Her voice pierced the silence. "Someone get the manager. Get security." Two customers stood up, hesitant, weighing the distance between courage and fear of getting involved. The manager, a middle-aged man with thin glasses and a dress shirt, appeared behind the counter, phone in hand, hesitating as if calculating the consequences. The barista dropped a cup, which shattered in the sink, sending hot water flying everywhere. "Let her go," Lucy repeated, stepping closer, her hands open in a plea. "This is a crime. You're hurting her." Richard pressed a little tighter, as if he wanted to imprint the final word on Selena's skin. "Learn it now," he said tensely, the veins in his neck standing out. "Achoo. Respect." Selena's world sharpened into concentric circles. The pressure of his hand, the weight of the watch against her skin, the mingled smell of grilled meat and metal, the sharp pain where the necklace touched. She raised her forearm and pushed down on his wrist with instinctive technique, twisting her body half a step to release the leverage. The movement gave her a blade of air, enough to find her voice. "Let go." "Now." Lucy, trembling, stood beside Selena, her eyes brimming with tears. "I'm with you." The manager took a step forward, but didn't complete the walk, his eyes fixed on Richard's expensive watch as if it were a sentence. "Mr. Miller, please, let's talk." "Talk, manager?" Richard's laugh was short, humorless. "Teach your team to obey, I'll pay." "This isn't obedience, this is mutual respect," Selena said, now bracing her jaw, suppressing the urge to tremble. Nah, I deserve to be treated with dignity." "Dignity is earned, that girl. My dignity is not for sale." The words cut through the air like a sharp crack. The room, still suspended, began to breathe again. Cell phones appeared discreetly in hands, cameras open, shocked eyes recording everything. A young man at table 7 whispered, "I'm recording." Richard, noticing the devices trained on him, his blue eyes narrowed. A moment of hesitation. The grip loosened an inch, but the hand remained there, imposing humiliation. Selena took advantage of the tiny gap to take a step back, but Richard pulled her back by the collar of her apron, roughly, as if to prevent any escape from the scene he thought he controlled. Lucy raised her voice, almost a scream. "Enough! Let her go! Someone call the police!" A chair scraped in the corner of the room. Firm footsteps echoed from the hallway leading to the bar. Tension had a smell, a texture, a sound. The clock read 8:34 p.m. when a deep, firm male voice cut through the room like a beam of light parting a heavy curtain. "Let her go. Now." The entire bar turned its face in the same direction, as if the atmosphere itself had pointed the way. Richard didn't move his hand, yet what moved was the atmosphere, an invisible thread of authority that came neither from money nor fear. And for the first time that night, it was Richard's gaze that wavered. The entire room turned toward the firm voice. A tall man was advancing between the tables with measured steps. Nathan Carter, 34, had fair skin, dark blonde hair slicked back, and green eyes as alert as beacons on a stormy night. He wore a casual gray suit, his tie loosened, like someone who had just left the office but decided to dine without sacrificing elegance. He held his cell phone with the camera already open, the display discreetly illuminating the tension in the air. "Let that woman go right now," he said, approaching until he was just a few steps away from Richard. His tone wasn't one of pleading, it was one of order. Richard turned his head away, still keeping his hand on Selena's collar. "And who are you to meddle, huh? This isn't your business." Nathan held up his phone slightly, so everyone could see the recording. My name is Nathan Carter. I'm a civil rights attorney. And the moment a client assaults an employee, it's no longer a personal whim, it's a crime. If you don't let go now, I'll call the police, miss, and this video will go straight to the station." A murmur ran through the restaurant. Customers exchanged glances. Some nodded silently. Selena, still breathing shallowly, met Nathan's green eyes and saw something different in them. There was no fear, no doubt, only firmness. Lucy took advantage of the space and leaned closer. "Please, Richard, it's over. Everyone's watching." Richard pressed his lips together, as if chewing on his pride. His hand slowly loosened, releasing Selena's collar, but not without one last, spiteful look. "You don't know who you're dealing with. I can destroy this girl's life in seconds." Nathan stepped forward, his shadow falling across the table. "Or maybe it's the other way around, Mr. Miller. What everyone here saw today could ruin your image forever. Think carefully before you threaten." The manager finally stepped forward, sweating beneath his light blue dress shirt. He adjusted his glasses and spoke in a low, almost trembling voice. "Mr. Carter, please don't exaggerate. Mr. Miller is a longtime customer. He's always given us good references." Nathan slowly turned to face the manager, his cell phone still erect. "References don't erase the shame we saw here. Your employee was nearly suffocated in front of everyone. And your concern is your wallet." The manager hesitated, his hand clenching the tissue he held. "I just ask that we resolve this peacefully. We can talk in the office, out of everyone's sight." Selena swallowed, adjusting the collar of her apron. The skin on her neck was still marked, her eyes watery but steady. She said nothing, but her silence weighed like an accusation. Richard adjusted the expensive watch on his wrist and grumbled, "This is a circus. Every time someone tries to impose order, a hero appears." Nathan immediately countered, "I'm no hero, Mr. Miller. I'm just someone who can't stand to watch injustice in silence. And I won't let this night be forgotten." The room was breathing heavily. Forgotten glasses, cooling plates, tense glances. Lucy placed her hand on Selena's shoulder, as if reminding her she wasn't alone. And Nathan, his phone steady, already had the video saved, every second recorded like a weapon against the silence so many preferred. At that moment, Richard realized he was no longer in control. His hand was still shaking, not from fear, but from suppressed anger. He took a step back, muttering, "You don't know what you're risking." Nathan just stared, his voice lower, but sharp. "Not so. The only risk here is that a man will lose what little respect he has left," and the entire restaurant, in reverent silence, awaited the next move. If you've made it this far, comment justice. That way I'll know you're enjoying the story and we'll confuse those who only read comments. The heavy silence still hung over the restaurant when Richard sat back down, adjusting his blue polo shirt over his broad chest as if nothing had happened. Selena remained still for a few seconds, breathing deeply, trying to hide the pain in her neck. Nathan put away his phone, but his eyes remained fixed on Richard, ready for any new movement. The manager, with thin glasses and a distressed expression, excused himself and approached Selena. "Selena, could you come with me to the counter? Please." His voice was low, almost a whisper, as if he were afraid of being overheard. Lucy squeezed her friend's hand before letting her go. Selena walked slowly to the counter, where the manager led her to a more private corner between the bar and the kitchen door. The smell of freshly brewed coffee mingled with nervousness. "Look, I know what happened was horrible," he began, avoiding direct eye contact. "But we need to be careful. Mr. Miller is a longtime client and influences a lot of important people. If this continues, it could cause serious problems for all of us." Selena looked up, her eyes still watery, but firm. "Serious problems." I almost choked in front of everyone. You saw it. Everyone saw it. The manager took a deep breath, adjusting his glasses. "Yes, I saw it. But if you report it, I don't know if the company will be able to keep you. Management prefers to avoid scandals. Maybe it's best to keep quiet." "Leave it alone." Her voice shook, not with fear, but with indignation. "Should I pretend nothing happened just to protect the restaurant's name?" "Selena, I'm trying to protect you too. You need this job. Think about your stability. Sometimes it's better to swallow your anger and move on." The words hit her like knives. Stability? What did stability mean when even breathing with dignity seemed forbidden? Meanwhile, Richard got up from the table with the calm of someone certain nothing would happen to him. He took his brown leather wallet from his pocket and left a large bill on the plate, on top of the still-slicked knife. Then he added 2 more bills, folded ostentatiously. "To make up for the inconvenience," he said loudly, so everyone could hear, "don't say I don't know how to recognize service, even when it's below par." He gave Selena a direct look, a cold smile tugging at the corners of his lips, and walked away unhurriedly, the sound of his shoes echoing on the wooden floor. Nathan stood, ready to follow Richard, but stopped when he realized Selena wasn't moving. She stood motionless behind the counter, staring at the stack of bills glistening in the yellow light. To her, it wasn't money. It was a scar. Lucy ran to her friend, her eyes brimming with tears. "Selena, you can't accept this. You don't deserve this humiliation." Selena took a deep breath, her voice cracking. "I know, but if I lose this job, how will I pay the rent? How will I keep up with the bills?" Nathan approached, his expression grave. "You're not alone. This video already guarantees that the truth won't be erased, but the decision is yours." She closed her eyes for a moment. Her body felt tired, her throat ached, her heart crushed. When she opened her eyes again, she simply said, "I just want to go home." That night, Selena returned to her small apartment in Dallas. The white walls seemed even colder and emptier. Her uniform was wrinkled, the smell of the restaurant still lingering in the fabric. She sat on the edge of her bed, removed her gold cross necklace, and finally let the tears flow uncontrollably. Her tears were silent but deep, as if washing away a wounded soul. On the nightstand, the framed law degree was covered in a fine layer of dust. Selena ran her finger over the glass and whispered, "One day, they'll know who I really am." The living room clock read 11:07 p.m. The city still glowed outside, but inside the apartment a heavy, almost suffocating silence reigned. And in that silence, a decision was born that would change everything. The dawn was silent in Dallas as Selena sat on the edge of her bed, her eyes swollen from crying. The yellowed lamp illuminated the simple room, revealing shelves filled with old books, notebooks, and a bookcase where, amidst the dust, a framed diploma rested. The glass reflected her weary image, almost as if reminding her of who she once was and who the world refused to allow her to remain. She stood up slowly, walking over to the wall. She ran her fingers over the diploma that read, University of Texas, Law School, Selena Marie James. A wave of memories washed over her. Suddenly, as if time had rewound, Her mind flashed back to images of the graduation ceremony. The packed auditorium, smiling classmates, cheering family members with vintage cameras in hand. She too smiled proudly that day, dressed in her black gown and cap. Beside her, her mother, Mary James, a woman with dark skin and hands calloused from housework, held her face tenderly. "You will open doors that I could never go through, daughter," said the mother, with tears streaming down her face. Selena smiled at the memory, but her chest tightened. She returned to the present, feeling the coldness of the frame. Her eyes welled up again. On that same wall hung a worn leather folder. She opened it and pulled out a stack of rejection letters. Each one had the same polite but cruel tone. "We appreciate your application, but we've opted for another, more suitable profile." She remembered every interview where they'd scrutinized her, looking away when they noticed her skin tone. Each time she'd heard, in a low voice, "You speak very well for your profile." The voice of her former professor, Dr. Helen, echoed in her mind. "Selena, you're talented, but the world isn't ready to see black women in the main courtroom yet. You'll have to fight twice as hard." She fought. She did internships, studied all night, and survived temporary jobs to pay her overdue tuition. But in the end, the doors closed one by one. The weight of bills, the pressure of survival, the lack of opportunities. Everything pushed her into jobs where no one asked about diplomas. They just knew how to smile and serve. She slammed the folder shut, taking a deep breath, and stared at the diploma as if staring at an open wound. "I'm not just a waitress," she whispered to herself, her voice breaking. "I never was. They can try to diminish me, but they can't erase who I am." Just then, the phone vibrated on the bedside table. It was a message from Lucy. "Girlfriend, don't let this go. He needs to pay for what he did." Selena held the phone for a few seconds, her heart racing. Part of her wanted to respond immediately, but another part remembered the manager, the veiled threats, the fear of losing what little she had. She lay down, staring at the ceiling, and the thought echoed over and over. "Maybe it's time to use what I've hidden for so long." In the silence of the night, while the city slept, a decision was born that could no longer be contained. While Selena struggled with her own memories and decisions, Lucy, at home, couldn't sleep. Sitting on the couch in her pajamas, her hair down, the light from her phone illuminating her face, she watched over and over the video Nathan had recorded and shared with her. Her heart raced with each passing second as she watched Richard grabbing Selena by the neck, her friend's pained look, the manager's complicit silence. "This can't go on like this," Lucy muttered, clutching her phone tightly. With trembling hands, she opened the social media app. The headline she typed reflected not only her outrage, but that of everyone who witnessed it. "Customer humiliates and assaults black waitress at Dallas restaurant." How long will this last? She took a deep breath, looked at the screen for a moment, and hit the publish button. The video spread like wildfire. In the early hours of the morning, a few likes and comments began to appear. "Unbelievable," wrote one user. This man needs to be held accountable." Another comment read, "I know this attendant. She's a sweetheart. This is blatant racism." Lucy followed every notification, her phone vibrating nonstop. In less than 3 hours, the video had already racked up thousands of views, shared in groups, on complaint pages, and even on the profiles of famous activists. An independent journalist wrote, "This video is proof that violence against black women is still normalized in public spaces. Shameful." Meanwhile, in Richard's luxurious mansion, Heavy curtains blocked the early morning light. He, in a silk robe, was sipping black coffee served by a maid. The phone rang incessantly. He answered it irritably. "Richard, we need to talk," said the deep voice of an important partner. "Your name is all over the networks." "Do you have any idea what this means for our companies?" Richard squinted, massaging his forehead. "That's internet hype. No one will remember it tomorrow." But it wasn't an exaggeration. The hashtags were among the most talked about topics on Twitter. Influencers, journalists, and even renowned lawyers were demanding action. Suddenly, a message arrived directly on Richard's cell phone. A link to the video splashed across the headlines. "Businessman accused of humiliating black clerk in Dallas." He threw his phone on the table, anger etched on his face. "They don't know who they're messing with," he muttered. Later, Richard gathered his communications team in a hurried video conference. Men and women in suits appeared in the small windows on the screen. "We need an urgent note to minimize the damage. Make up anything? Say it was a misunderstanding." An aide hesitated. "Mr. Miller, the problem is that the video speaks for itself. There's no denying what everyone is seeing." Richard slammed his hand on the table. "Then by silence, do whatever it takes. This matter dies today." But abroad, the issue was only gaining traction. Selena's face, even marred by pain, was beginning to become a symbol. Activist profiles were posting messages of support. "Selena is not alone," wrote a civil rights website, and the video, which had been discreetly shared by Lucy, was now becoming a rallying cry. That morning, while Selena was still wondering if she should keep quiet to keep her job, the entire city was already chanting her name without her knowing. If you've made it this far, comment resistance. That way, I'll know you're enjoying the story, and we'll confuse those who only read comments. The sun had already risen high when news of the video was not only on the networks, but also on local news channels. With each passing hour, the pressure mounted, and Richard Miller, locked in his luxurious office with panoramic windows, paced back and forth like a caged animal. His jaw clenched, his gaze fixed on the computer screen displaying headlines that tarnished his name. "They think they can destroy me with a video," he grumbled, throwing a gold pen on the table. "I'm not going to be the laughing stock of this town." Around him, 3 lawyers in ties watched in silence, until the oldest, with gray hair and a calculating look, summoned the courage to speak. "Mr. Miller, the best strategy is to turn the narrative around. We need to show that the employee provoked you, that you were simply reacting to a situation of disrespect." Richard narrowed his eyes, pleased with the idea. "Exactly. I want this Selena to pay dearly for trying to expose me. Make up whatever you need. Say she insulted me, that she tried to tarnish my reputation, and threaten the restaurant too. If you don't protect me, you'll go down with me." One of the lawyers opened a folder and handed over documents. "We've already prepared extrajudicial notices against her and the restaurant. You just need to sign." Richard grabbed his pen, scrawled his signature angrily, and threw the paper on the table. "I want this case over with before the end of the day. If she thinks she can take me on, she'll find out who really holds the power." Meanwhile, Selena arrived for another shift at the restaurant. Still shaken, with bruises on her neck and tired eyes, she was surprised by the manager greeting her at the door with a tense expression. "Selena, we need to talk. Mr. Miller is accusing you of slander. He says you provoked him and that it was all just a reaction." Her eyes widened. "Slander? He tried to choke me in front of everyone. There's a video. Clients witnessed it. How could he turn it against me?" The manager sighed, looking around, as if afraid of being overheard. "The problem is, He has money, lawyers, influence. He's threatening to sue the restaurant and, personally, you. Selena felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her heart was racing. Her breath was short. Lucy, who had arrived earlier, stood beside her. This is absurd. Everyone saw what happened. He won't be able to turn the victim into the guilty party. Selena held her friend's arm, trying to remain calm, but her voice cracked. Lucy, I've already lost so much in my life because of my skin color and lack of money. What if it happens again? What if now, in front of everyone, I end up crushed again? Lucy hugged her tightly. Not this time. Now you're not alone. But even with the comforting words, fear grew inside her like a shadow. At home that night, Selena stared at the dusty diploma again. She touched the frame and whispered, "Maybe it's time to fight with the weapons that have always been mine." Across town, Richard celebrated his move over a glass of whiskey. He believed he had taken a decisive step towards silencing the truth. But little did he know that by trying to crush Selena, he was about to awaken something far greater than his influence could control. The next morning, the Dallas courthouse was packed. Journalists, onlookers, and activists jostled for space on the wooden benches, while flashbulbs illuminated the main entrance. The case had already become a public spectacle, and everyone wanted to see the black clerk pitted against the powerful businessman up close. Selena arrived accompanied by Lucy, her expression serious but her heart racing. The weight of the threat still gnawed at her, but there was something new in her eyes, a spark of courage. Beside them, Nathan walked with firm steps, impeccably suited, leather briefcase in hand. Richard entered a few minutes later, flanked by 3 lawyers, all wearing dark suits and bearing haughty expressions. The businessman wasn't smiling, but his arrogant look betrayed his confidence in his strategy. As he passed Selena, he whispered softly, "You won't last a week." Selena took a deep breath, trying not to falter, but Nathan supported her with a discreet gesture. Ignore him. Today, he's the one who's going to fall. The preliminary hearing began. The judge, a middle-aged man with a firm expression, called the courtroom to order and gave the floor to Richard's defense. The older attorney stood, adjusting his glasses. Your Honor, we are faced with a clear case of defamation. Mr. Miller was unfairly exposed on social media, the victim of a distorted narrative. The employee in question provoked and verbally humiliated my client, forcing him to react. Murmurs rippled through the room. Selena lowered her eyes for a moment, but Nathan calmly stood up when it was his turn. Your Honor, with all due respect, Miller's defense confuses aggression with reaction. What we'll see here isn't a distorted narrative, but the truth, captured on video and witnessed by dozens of people. He walked to the central table, opened his briefcase, and removed a tablet. I request permission to display the main evidence. The judge nodded. Within seconds, the viral video was on the courtroom's giant screen. Silence fell over the room as the scene unfolded. Richard holding Selena by the neck, desperation in his eyes, Lucy screaming for help, and Nathan interceding. The judge frowned. The jurors glanced at each other, and the murmurs turned to outrage. Richard shifted in his chair, his face red, as the lawyer tried to intervene. Your Honor, this is a misrepresentation of context, manipulated to tarnish my client's reputation. Nathan raised his voice firmly. I manipulated. All the clients present confirm what happened. But that's not all, Your Excellency. Allow me to reveal something that has remained hidden until now. Selena looked up at him, surprised, as if unprepared for what was coming. Nathan smiled slightly and continued. Miss Selena James is not just a waitress. She has a law degree from the University of Texas, specializing in human rights. She knows the law. She knows her rights. And she's here not just as a victim, but as someone who has dedicated years of study to fighting injustices like this. The impact was immediate. The audience in the courtroom held its breath, and a murmur rose among those present. Lucy smiled excitedly, her eyes shining with pride. The judge sat back in his chair, surprised. "Is that true, Miss James?" Selena took a deep breath, her voice shaky but firm. "Yes, Your Honor. I graduated in law, but I never had the chance to practice my profession. Today, before this court, I want to prove that dignity cannot be bought or silenced." The words echoed in the courtroom, and even some jurors were moved. Richard slammed his hand on the table in anger. "This doesn't change anything. She's still just a waitress looking for fame." Nathan didn't hesitate. "No, Mr. Miller. What changes is that the truth has come out. And now the whole country knows who you are." The room erupted in murmurs and subdued applause, and the judge called for order again. But it was too late. The mood had already changed. For the first time, Richard looked cornered, and Selena lifted her face with a dignity no one could deny. The days following the hearing were a whirlwind. Headlines splashed across every newspaper. Businessman Richard Miller charged with assault at restaurant. Black attendant reveals she is a lawyer and becomes a symbol against racial injustice. With each interview, with each new comment from experts, Richard's image was shattered before the country's eyes. On the other side, Selena, still stunned by Nathan's revelation in court, now walked down streets where strangers stopped her to offer support. Some said, "You represent me." Others simply smiled in admiration. At first, she felt embarrassed, but little by little, she began to understand. This wasn't just about her, but about all the voices that had been silenced for years. The restaurant, which until then had tried to hide behind internal excuses, couldn't handle the pressure. A press conference was called. The manager, nervous, read the official statement on camera. "We want to express our apologies to Ms. Selena James. We recognize that our inaction exacerbated the pain she suffered, and we commit to reviewing our internal employee protection policies." Selena watched the broadcast from home, with Lucy by her side. "Look, my friend, they finally bowed," Lucy said, squeezing her hand. Selena took a deep breath, a mixture of relief and disbelief. They apologized because they needed to, not because they believe it, but it's a start. Soon after, invitations began pouring in. NGOs, social justice law firms, and even universities were reaching out to her. One email caught her attention. "Miss James, we would like to invite you to join our advisory board on human rights projects." She read aloud, overcome with emotion. They want me to be a part of this." Lucy smiled, tears in her eyes. "I always knew you were bigger than that uniform." That night, Nathan sought her out. They met in a quiet cafe, away from the flashes. He was out of a suit, wearing only a simple shirt, and for the first time he looked less like a lawyer and more like a man. "I needed to see how you were doing after everything," he said, looking her in the eyes. Selena, still unsure, replied quietly, "I feel like I'm living someone else's life. Yesterday I was cleaning tables. Today they're talking about me on TV." Nathan smiled, a warmth that broke the tension. "No, Selena. This has always been your life. You were just hiding under the weight the world imposed on you. Now it's your turn to shine." She looked away, overcome with emotion. What if I'm not ready? What if this all falls apart? Nathan reached across the table, holding her hand firmly. You've survived closed doors, the pain of injustice, and contempt. This is just the beginning. And I want to be by your side, not just as a lawyer, but as someone who believes in you. The silence between them was broken only by the distant sound of the coffee machine. Selena felt tears escape, but this time, they weren't from pain. It was the feeling of finally being seen. Across town, Richard watched his own downfall. Companies were breaking contracts. Investors were pulling out. And his image was associated with arrogance and violence. For the first time, he found himself alone, without allies ready to protect him. Meanwhile, Selena discovered that her life was about to take a completely different direction, uniting justice, dignity, and perhaps even a new love. If you've made it this far, comment justice. That way, I'll know you're enjoying the story and will confuse those who only read comments. The courtroom slowly emptied, but Selena remained motionless, sitting on the weather-beaten wooden bench. Her eyes, still teary, reflected a mixture of relief and strength she'd never felt before. Lucy nervously held her hand tightly, as if fearing it was all just a dream. Nathan, beside her, maintained his firm posture, but his gentle gaze betrayed that he, too, had been touched by what he'd witnessed. Selena took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a moment, and let the words she'd kept so tightly contained finally find their voice. For years, I believed my voice was worthless. I thought my color, my condition, my past condemned me to silence. But today I understand that dignity is not negotiable. No one can take away what is born of truth. Lucy, her eyes red with emotion, hugged her tightly, almost childlike. You have no idea how much I'm inspired by her. Selena, you've shown us all that justice isn't just in the hands of the powerful. Nathan, who had been watching silently until then, approached. The contrast between his elegant suit and the human gesture of extending his hand to Selena changed the entire room. You not only stood up for yourself, he said, his voice thick with sincerity. You gave a voice to everyone who has ever been silenced. Selena looked at them both, smiled through her tears, and felt the weight of the years melt away. In that moment, the painful past became fuel for something much greater. Lucy wrapped her in a hug. Nathan rested his hand on her shoulder, and together they formed a picture that had nothing to do with power, wealth, or social status. It was a living portrait of courage, unity, and justice. Outside, camera flashes still awaited her exit, but within that small circle of affection, Selena had already found her victory. Not victory over Richard, nor the restaurant that silenced her, but over the fear that once tried to dominate her spirit. The smile that broke out on her face wasn't just one of relief. It was a milestone, a silent announcement that her life would never be the same again. And so we end this story full of pain, courage, and overcoming. Now I want to hear from you. What did you think of Selena's journey? Leave a rating from 1 to 10 in the comments, so I can understand how much this story touched your heart. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, share it with someone special, and subscribe to the channel to follow the next stories. And before you leave, I've put together another moving story that will touch your soul even more.